Welcome to KodaCast. I'm your host, Damsky, and we will dive into the world of Web3 and NFTs. Today, we are joined by a talented artist, Flipacadabra, to discuss his unique journey and artistic vision. Buckle up for an inspiring conversation on animation, NFTs, and emotions that drive creativity. Hello, Flipacadabra. How are you?
GM. And oh, I didn't do a proper coffee GM. There you go. GM.
GM,
How
GM.
you doing, man?
I'm good. And you?
I am absolutely spectacular. It's a little bit early for me, but not horrible.
I
When I was looking
see.
through all the times on the calendar, I'm like, oh yeah, very large time difference. But we got it done.
Okay.
We got it
Where are you
done.
based now?
I'm in San Diego, California.
Oh, I see. Okay, it
Yeah.
must be tough to wake up this early, honestly.
Well, honestly, most of the time, they wake me up before these two guys start fighting at around 4 in the morning, and I try
I
to ignore
see.
them.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with some questions I have. Can you share your journey from discovering your passion for animation to basically becoming a professional animator? And what's the connection to math in this process?
So, I mean, ever since I was about this tall, I've been in love with animation. Just like many of us started watching cartoons really young. Started with Thundercats and Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters, all the Saturday morning ones. And as I got older and I got into school, I kind of always found myself kind of fidgeting and moving, like I was never able to sit still. I don't know if that's ADD or what, but eventually, I found out that was my passion and my drive to how I was able to understand kind of organization of topics. I was so around junior high. I was just horrible with math. I was great in everything else. I was just really bad in math. And while I would just have this cognitive dissonance with being able to learn in class, and I would feel lost and kind of stupid. And so I'd start drawing this little skateboarding stick figure in the corners of my math book, and I'd start, he'd do tricks, fall down, get eaten by a monster, and the days would pass with that, and I'd just kind of forget I was even in math class, and so I forgot about that guy. Years and years later, um, I through another fluke got into animation, but when I got into the NFT space, um, it was early 2021, and I was going through some stuff in the garage, and I found that old math book. And at the time, I had been microdosing psilocybin for like a few months, so like my brain was ready to do something new. I was ready to get rid of old habits and start new ones. And I found that guy, and I'm like, oh, I remember this guy. Holy crap! This guy was like he was like my totem. He was like my little like my teacher who kind of helped me realize that I could be good at something that actually incorporates a ton of math, even though I just didn't understand how to integrate it back then. And so that became yeah, he became my persona out here. Uh, and I didn't I didn't he never had a name. He was just a little stick figure guy. But then as I was flipping the pages, I'm like, oh well, that's his name, Flip. And oh, and I suppose the whole ethos behind the name Flipacadabra, which is longer and more confusing for people to say than just flip. Uh, it means it's essentially my magic word because what he did for me is he reminded me that like if you just create movement, if you flip a page, if you look at something the other way, it can be really healing in terms of in a creative way, in terms of getting new ideas, but also for mental health for me. Um, the more I move, uh, movimiento es vida. The more you move anything, including yourself, you can change your perspective, and it keeps me sane.
Hmm. Awesome. So, how basically did you discover the passion for animation?
Um, specifically, so from I guess kind of mid high school time is when this happened. I've always loved watching animation, but getting into it, I kind of did a little bit in high school. But I remember watching Dexter's Lab. Genndy Tartakovsky is one of my favorite animators. All of his stuff, it seems so filmic, so simple, yet so much more impactful than many of the live action films I'd ever seen, and other animated movies. And so around around college time, I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't quite sure what to get into. I knew I liked art, but I didn't know that it was animation. And I wound up going to a continuation school where I lived in Burbank, um, an amazing school where they would let you finish they would let you finish your other subjects with another subject. So like if you're in history but you suck at writing, they say, all right, you can paint a painting, and if that painting shows that you understand these chapters, then good. And so I got into that, and through that, an art teacher told me that Nickelodeon Studios was like up the street in Burbank, and they're like, they need interns. Why don't you go ask? And at the time, I was like, a junior in high school. I'm like, they don't take high schoolers; they take college kids. And they're like, no, go check. So I went and I asked, and they said okay. So I wound up with a cleanup storyboard cleanup intern job for a couple of summers there. And that was the first time I got to be in a studio environment and see how everything was done and just get an idea of how it all worked. And from that moment, I was hooked, and I just had to do something in animation. And then I went to a college called Noman School of Visual Effects in Hollywood. Did that for 2 years and been working ever since.
Wow, awesome story. Honestly, like I especially like the internship part where you just like go and try something and then it drives you to like your, you know, lifetime, almost lifetime passion. Um, so like, what was like the initial impression of NFTs for you?
Uh, it was like the first time I ever tried drugs. the first rave I ever went to when I was a kid. It was like the first time I was in love. It was just mind blowing. Uh, when I started, it was a pretty good time to start. 2021 around June. Um, like I said, I had just been kind of microdosing psilocybin for a while, so I was very, and I wasn't drinking that much at all, so I was like I was ready to go, and all of the Twitter Spaces had just been starting. I didn't really get into Clubhouse, but the Twitter Spaces just started, and so I was on everybody else's schedule on the other side of the world. So I was getting up at like 4 or 5 in the morning to come and talk with a bunch of strangers in Spaces about art and life and everything, and uh, and I just got into it hard. Just got into it hard. It was great. Like I immediately was a part of a collaborative project with like 50 other artists on Foundation uh, that went great, and everybody sold their pieces, and I just made a ton of friends, like immediately. It was yeah, it was lovely for me.
I see.
It started around then, but yeah, it's been going strong, and of course that was the better time before everything went. But
True that. So was that like also your first experience with, let's say, Web3 or crypto? Or
yes, it was. My wife had gotten she essentially got me into NFTs. She wasn't into them and still kind of isn't, but she's done a little bit of trading with them. She's like full-time trader too, crypto trader, and yeah, she had just been into it for a while and kind of mentioned it to me. And it's funny, I had like a Twitter account from 20, 30 years ago that I'd never touched. She's like, "Oh, you should check this out," and yeah, just got into it from there, and it was crazy too because I've been in a lot of collaborative artistic environments before from film and games and whatnot. And while those are great and you have a lot of camaraderie and like melding of the minds and spirits, it's so different in NFTs and Twitter, and so different from crypto too because a lot of the crypto Telegram chats are just like awful, like really um, racist and homophobic and all that shit. But like
yeah.
Twitter, not that there's not some bad actors, but it was just a ton of sweet, supportive people um, that respected each other,
Mm.
and from all over the world. Like every day I get to speak with and shoot the shit with, be myself with, and collaborate with artists all over the globe, which is I never got to do that before. So
Mm. Yeah, so
yeah,
would you
I like
say
it.
like that basically experience with NFTs in the beginning influenced your work and creative process afterwards?
Uh, d- yes, most definitely. when I came into the space, I wanted to come in as Flip, and I wanted to, I wanted to skate through my childhood passions, which is, geology and calligraphy and uh, and with animation. And as you go through it, of course, everything changes. Like I kind of have ADD and I've always done way too many art forms, so I really wanted to try and focus when I was here because I feel like if you want to be an artist that people can understand, you need to like stand in one place for a minute so they can focus on you. And as time changes, of course, people are like, oh, you start doing these types of projects or start integrating this type of technology. And I found that as I kind of moved forward, I kind of wanted to do mainly just animation more often, like a little bit of 2D art. But as time went on, I realized that like within the space and the kind of just like high energy that the space is, full computer work and animation just like became too stressful and crazy for me. So I kind of started somehow the space kind of sculpted me doing this. Is I got back into just doing more 2D art with acrylic and crayons. Actually, that wound up being what I needed to kind of stay sane in the space. Because too much computer time can kind of make me a little bonkers, as I'm sure with anybody.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so can you share like a memorable experience from the collaborations that you have had in the space? Like, what's the most memorable one for you?
Sure. I guess the most memorable one. Well, I'll just say this one because it was the biggest one, but it was the first big one that I did was it was called the Getting Decked project by a dear friend. I think he's actually out of the space now, but slash days. But it was essentially a playing card project where each person got a card out of a deck of cards, and however you wanted to do it. Our fearless leader in the project, he kind of designed the overall motif, and we just did whatever we want, and it was amazing because he scheduled and organized the entire thing, trying to get like 54 artists all together and you know integrated is insane. But yeah, I still talk to a lot of those people from this day. Everything kind of wound up trending on the foundation page from the project. Everybody's piece sold out within the first day or two of being up, and yeah, it was just incredible. Um, and it also showed me kind of like how efficiently that many people could work together, which I didn't think was possible outside of like having like a studio setting or like having a ton of
Hmm.
a ton of coordinators around. Um, but yeah, that was absolutely incredible. That and the cool thing about that, and that's another thing that I do to this day with like almost all my NFTs, is I love sharing, um, you know, real life things, and so I'll ship I'll ship like a crystal and a fingerboard to people who get some of my pieces and sometimes some of the actual full size paintings as well um, to them. And so with this project, everybody got a deck of cards um, from the project, and with each person's printed thing on it. And that was something that like was a nightmare for the people who ran the project to put up to do, but they did it, and it was awesome, and it inspired me to continue to do that.
Hmm.
So,
I see. I mean, like people a lot
so
of
that,
times talk about basically interconnecting their digital art with physical world pieces. So I think basically when you buy something in the digital and getting like a memorial, piece of product to your home is, awesome, awesome because then it makes you hold it a little bit longer or something.
Totally. It doesn't even need to be something big too. Like some of my favorite, some people like big things for their house, but I have too much crap. And even like a small token, like a little thing. Like I've been wanting to make like these little coins, like actual like stamped coins that are reminiscent of a project I'm going to do. And that for me, some of the my most treasured items are little things I keep in my this pouch that I've had for 20 years. But I know it's there and it's this special little trinket. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
I see, I see.
most definitely.
So when we are talking about animation or future of animation, do you see NFTs playing a role there?
Hugely, hugely, hugely. I can't like it. I know that VV is kind of doing a lot of the stuff with a lot of huge IPs and brands. I've worked on many of the Marvel movies and tons of huge games, and being a fan of many of them, I love, I'm so emotionally invested in all of these characters that I've grown up with from comics and film. It's it might as well be called a religion for everybody that's really into something like that, um, because it's just woven into the tapestry of your DNA and your society, kind of. It's been made that way. So I think if you were to go to, future first time you see a Batman movie as a kid, and there's an NFT that comes with it, and that's linked to a little AR game you get to play, or like a special little bracelet you get, or like a with a bat signal on it, those things like all kind of going together and being able to learn digital ownership and like how that world works from a very young age. Not that that's not already happening. There's tons of kids in the space. Maybe it seems like it's all kids sometimes, but I think that's extremely important and really valuable. And we've all seen a million different projects, start to do a short, start to do a movie, of course, do games and metaverses and whatnot. But like Woody's was an amazing one where they it's a one of the PFPs I have, but they do a lot of charity work for trees and kind of educating about conservation. But the animation that they had done by a studio for their thing was amazing, um, for the digital short that they did, and yeah, I'd love to see more of that. But I think it definitely plays a part, and I think it's one of the best ways you could fund a film too, is by crowdfunding,
Mm.
because then it's for the community by the community, um, and in different areas than just Patreon or wherever else you get crowdfunding these days.
Yeah, true, true. So how do you see AI impacting those things, right? Because we can see even today that it's capable of doing like crazy stuff. So do you think we will have like AI movies or something?
We're all gonna die.
Most definitely.
No, it's gonna be a good death. Um, I must talk about this like every single day with different people. Um, and first of all, I just want to say to any artists out there, don't be afraid of it. Don't be angry at it. Please learn it, even just a little bit. It's like if you're going to live somewhere where the second language is, say, Spanish, learn a little bit of Spanish at least. AI is going to be the second language of technology. It may become like the first language at some point. Um, and I heard somebody talking how everybody's using it now, right? A lawyer was talking about how he doesn't think that a lot of people are starting to use AI in their court cases, which is brilliant because in law, like it's such a nebulous thing and it's all written down, but everybody kind of reinterprets it and finds hidden laws that can change a court case. And he didn't think that it's ever going to replace lawyers, but he thinks that lawyers with AI are going to replace lawyers without AI. And I think it's the same way. For me, I used to spend a ton of time kit bashing and modeling these environments with crystals and making these skate parks and animating flip skating through them. And while I love doing that, I actually hate modeling. It takes forever. I can draw it faster, get a concept going, and then if I run that through Stable Diffusion, I can have a few background environments,
Mm.
in a day. And that can save me so much time on getting to the meat of what I want to do, which is animation, as opposed to doing all of the shit together. Um, and I think, uh, yeah, I've just used it for so many things. I even used it for a job interview a while back. Um, I used it to rapid prototype a bunch of storyboards from a bunch of sketches I had, and it gave me this amazing presentation that was based off of something I did that would have taken me probably a half a
Mm.
day to hours to do, um, and it helped me land the gig. So it was, yeah, I think it's very useful, and I think as long as people just learn it, like try to learn it and see how it integrates into your art style. I see a lot of people, of course, just clicking and then like bam art, and and that's fine. Whatever, do what you want to do. That's fine. But it can be so much more, and you can have so much fun with it, and it can really help evolve your own art form, regardless of what that is. If you make macaroni, art, then you put that on the fridge, and that's your art form. AI can help you with that.
Mm. Yeah.
And it can help you be more of you. It's not going to change you.
Yeah, I also see it as a tool,
Yeah,
not an enemy. Because afterwards, if it's there, then it can make our job easier. Then why not use it, right?
how do you
Well,
use it?
I'm trying to use it mainly for since we are organizing a lot of events. Basically, I have a custom prompt that I trained, and it helps me to create like a overview of the event, and then it's asking like separate questions, and I'm answering, and it's creating like the whole event structure. So I don't have to think about it by myself. I just answer
That's awesome.
questions based on what I need for a specific event. And then I'm working more with that. Once that is finished, I'm continuing to, for example, some copywritings for various portals and, platforms. Then just, trying to maximize it as much as possible. It also saves so much time. Like yeah, it's unreal.
I think that's the way that um, that a lot more mass adoption is going to happen is when you have maybe you'll need fucking commercials or something, but it's like, a guy who's working all the time and he can't spend time with his wife and he can't spend time with his kids and his dog is sad and that because he has to write all these emails and do all this shit and like figure out how the best way to drive somewhere and then he just trains a prompt to figure out all that shit for him.
Yes.
And he can link it up to his phone and just be like, "Hey Siri, figure out all this shit for me so I can spend time with my family." Cut to a shot of, oh, he's petting his dog. His family's happy. But yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that's
Um,
cool though.
so your manifesto mentions like the love for rocks, crystals, and calligraphy. So how like has these interests influenced your NFT art?
So for ever since I was a kid, I loved going rock hunting. And not like mining. I just like literally just exploring nature and finding little things that I deemed as treasures. And I always found them very expansive. Every little thing I would find, it wasn't just like, oh, it's a thing. It was always like it had this magnetic pull to it, making me want to move towards it and get inside of it if I could, especially crystals and all forms of geology. And that's been a thread that's kind of gone throughout my entire life. Never was really an art form per se, and I never really integrated it into an art form as much, but uh, that that was one of the things that when I was like, all right, what is Flip gonna do? Like, what is he? He could just skateboard. That'd be fun. People would like that. But like, why is he doing it? And once again, the reason is to move. Like that is the point. To move through from around to flip things and have that create magic within your mind and within your heart and within others. Um, so with calligraphy very much to me is a form of dance. It's no different than animation. Um, like a lot of animators, I know a lot of animators that can't draw for shit. Like they really can't draw, but they're 3D animators. They're sculptors in time, puppeteers basically. And in that way, you're kind of experiencing synesthesia. You're like what a musicians get to feel. Like they feel the music. They can have a feeling of when the notes and the beats, when the spaces in between kind of line up and kind of make you feel better. Um, so calligraphy, it's always a flow. Like it's a flow that feels the way going down a ramp and executing a trick does. When you're able to finish like a swirl and get that little point on something, it feels exactly the same as when you finally land a trick. And so calligraphy being something that pulls me. Calligraphy is a little different though in terms of art forms. Animation is something I do for fun. It's very expansive. Um, it inspires me and kind of pulls me towards other people and towards an industry. Whereas calligraphy is a very personal thing. It's something I usually do as an art form to deal with a lot of my worst emotions and harder times in life. And I have tons and tons of pages of books that's just like the worst, horrible journaling from the hardest times in my life. But it's not even necessarily words; it's all abstract letter forms and shapes. Um, and that going through a lot of those pages and looking at a lot of that also kind of pulls me in. To me, it all kind of looks like a skate park, but it also pulls me in because one thing I love about abstract art is you can look at it a million ways and see so many different things every single time. And so those things all kind of having their own magnetic pull kind of smash in together and become these crystalline calligraphy gobbledygook worlds that that I hope to skate in more and more.
um, when we're talking about challenges, I mean, we're talking about selling out stuff in the bull market, and now it's the opposite time of the market, let's say. So, how has it impacted you as an artist, for example?
Well, luckily for me, so I spent a lot. Did I spend more time? I don't know if I spent more time in the space than I do now. It felt like I did. It's hard to tell. I also work from home, so I'm kind of like a hermit, and I don't know if it's Monday or Friday right now. I have no idea. Um, so how did that impact? I think it kind of changed how much I animated. Because of course crypto tanked and NFTs tanked, and it kind of went like this and went all crazy. I never quit my day job for this, and I don't ever want to. I want this to be something that's fun. I don't ever have a boss. This is always going to be something that's like my passion project, and it's always something that's I believe in. That's not tied to a franchise or an IP or something. That's another reason why I never wanted to like in the space. It took me a year to tell anybody where I'd worked before or what I'd done because I didn't want to be associated with like the Marvel universe. That's like something else.
Mm.
Um, but I think the main thing that changed for me and then this down market has been animating a bit less, just because animation takes so long, and I was creating much more complicated, detailed work, and I suppose if it was selling for a ton of money, that'd be fine for my wife. But when I'm spending that much time in here, essentially just playing with my toys, she's like, "All right, where are you all this time? You're not getting rich off this, so we need more time over here." Um, but I'm still in the space as much, and I'm still interacting with people as much, and I feel like I'm actually collaborating more. It's just on smaller pieces, on pieces that are a little bit more. Um, it's interesting. I not doing as much complex animation in the computer. I guess the bear market did this to me, and I don't really know how, but not as much crazy animation in the computer, but more experimenting with other forms of technology
Mm.
um, and integrating it into my art style. Like AI a bit, definitely been doing a lot of that. A little bit more calligraphy through AI, but also AR. That's something that has been a very interesting thing to learn. I wanted to give out a bunch of AR pieces of some of my animated pieces, a couple of collabs I did, and what's the best way to do that? Do you do it through a website? How do you get it to your collectors to work on Android and iPhone? What are the limitations? And so that's what I've been spending a lot of time doing is learning, almost more than creating this past year, uh, and that's been great. I've been loving that. Of course, it's less expansive and explosive than the 2021 was when there was just so much stuff being pumped out and all the hype. But I have learned so much. I've learned so much stuff uh, this past year, um, kind of through the bear market, which is inspiring. I feel like I always have, and this is kind of how I felt in the beginning. I feel like that butterflies in your stomach when you go on a first date. You're like really excited. Um, I kind of wake up with that like every morning
Mm.
for this stuff. Um, and it's kind of a problem because I'm going to bed at like 2 3 in the morning on my phone still like still learning shit or still messing with some prompts in mid journey. I'm like, all right, I need to go to bed. I really need to go to sleep. But yeah, that's kind of how it changed, I guess.
Yeah, I know the feel of the excitement when new model comes out or just there are some new updates and you just want to try it out so badly and you just play around with that all day. Um, I just, I think that that's the true like interest that should be laying within the technology. So yeah.
It's a great thing too to do. Like so many people, you go to bed, right? And what are you gonna do? You're gonna scroll on Twitter, scroll on Reddit, read a book if you're smart. I don't do that. But uh, ever since I was able to start, like, I'd do a render, I'd I'd get a few frames in, or I'd do some calligraphy, and then I'd bring it into Midjourney or Dolly, and I'd play with it for like an hour in bed as I'm going to sleep, as opposed to just doom scrolling.
Mm.
And that's like, you know, it's not a it's a creative use of time. It's not a mindless use of time, I would say. But it definitely, like, I get tired after that for an hour and I'll go to sleep, and I'm like, wow, if I think about how many hours I've spent scrolling Reddit to go to sleep,
Hmm.
um, and I wind up staying up for 2 hours because I'm just on Reddit, and I'm like, that is such a better use of time. If I'm gonna be up that long anyways. But
Hmm. True that. All right, so I've got my last wrap up question. What advice you would give to basically people leaning into Web3 and NFTs now? Like, what to, for example, be careful about and stuff like that.
don't click any links. Don't click any links. Don't click any links. Don't click any links. Make a burner wallet for anything that you're unsure of. Have a cold wallet. Uh, but most importantly, I would say find some really good friends and just learn from them. Always make sure that you're not the smartest person in the room and learn from them every single day. Um, get get hooked up with folks like you. Get hooked up with people who have newsletters, who are out there sharing knowledge, and who are not uh, pushing fake narratives. Toxic, what's it called? Toxic positivity is a thing that a lot of people push out into the space, and it's just they just want your money.
Mm,
They just want your money, and they want you to be a little follower. So, um, and I think one thing that's really, really important is whatever you're doing, would you be doing it if you weren't making any ETH, any money at all? That's the kind of thing that you should be doing, and why are you doing it? Because that it doesn't matter what you're doing it, or even really how you're doing it. But remember, if you can answer the why of what you're producing and how you're sharing it to people, everyone will connect with that, and it'll never get stale because it comes from in here. It's supposed
mm.
to out there.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so thank you so much for joining, and thanks everybody for tuning into KodaCast with Flip. We hope you enjoyed our engaging conversation, and don't forget to give us a follow, subscribe, and all the casual stuff. And I'll be happy to see you at the next one. Thank you, Flip.
Yeah, GM.
GM, GM.